Parents are in the kitchen still. You can swear it's not this world. Elevation Nation. Beautiful part. We were just talking about this, about having a podcast, is yes, we get to help people. Yes, we get to influence lives of young adults around the world. But I'm going to be selfish here. Selfishly, we get to meet really cool people who probably wouldn't want to talk to Parker or myself unless we had a podcast. And this man, this myth, this legend, Danny Goldberg, reached out to us, was kind enough to say, hey, let's connect. And the synergy was just so apparent when we hopped on the phone, Danny, and got to chat. And I'm so excited that we get to have you on Elevation Nation and welcome you to our community because, let's be honest, you are elevating yourself, you are elevating the lives of others, and you are living a life that's truly incredible. So I can't wait to tell your story. Danny, welcome to the pod, man. It's an honor.
Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
Danny, you don't know this. We have beef already. There's straight up beef here. You're a Tyler Hill camp guy. That's, I saw that on your LinkedIn. I'm like, I'm an Indian Head camp guy, Camp IHC. And so you're like 20 minutes down the road, had to, beach your camp and sports all the time. So we already got beef, kind of, not really. But I love on your LinkedIn, Danny, the way you described Tyler Hill as a camp counselor. Had the best time of my life. And you know what? I will agree. I did 9 summers at camp, and yes, it was the best time of my life. Danny, what's up? We're pumped to have you. How's it going?
It definitely was the best time. My cousin was like looking deep into the archives of my LinkedIn, scrolling all the way to the bottom, and he's like, "You have some absurd things that you've written on your LinkedIn page." But I think you got to have a little bit of fun. So yes, I did 14. I did 9 summers at Tyler Hill, I think, or 10 summers, and then 4 as a counselor. So, and my wife and I actually we had like our wedding party there with all our friends.
Wow.
But she didn't go there.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, JJ, I don't think would be thrilled to do wedding party at camp, but I am very jealous of you because that would be a dream.
Yeah, it was a great time. But actually, when we got married almost 2 years ago, it was like the crazy Memorial Day weekend where it was raining the entire time. So we planned an entire camp weekend of jumping in the lake and doing all these things on the facilities, and then it was raining literally it was 30 degrees on Memorial Day weekend. So people were like, do you have space heaters? And we ended up planning an impromptu rainy day schedule on the fly. And we ended up using the lake for like a cold plunge, which is pretty funny.
It's funny because Sam doesn't even know what a rainy day schedule is. I feel like it's no idea.
Guy.
No, it can't.
What do you think it is, Sam?
I would assume it's what you do when it's raining and you can't do all your camp activities. I'm using some creative thinking here, some critical thinking skills, Parker. But listen, you guys can talk about camp another time. You're making me jealous. I wasn't in the camp world. I played sports, but
Same.
I'm glad we started off with a little bit of beef because I think that's how all good friendships start, with a little bit of rivalry. And I want to get into all of that and a little bit more. But Danny, this is Elevation Nation. Before we get started into your incredible story, we'd love for you to give a little elevator pitch. Why don't you tell the people who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a serial entrepreneur. I started my first business when I was 14 years old. Went down the path of doing things that really energized me. My first business was selling boxing gloves. I loved it. My dad died when I was 20, and that pivoted my focus from doing the things I loved to I just wanted to be successful so badly early on in my career. And I ended up pursuing the path of money, success, and built a new business that was fortunately successful. And at 25, my mom died. And that made me take a huge step backwards and ask myself life-changing, important questions, which made me take a huge beat and reevaluate what I was doing and the life that I was living. And today I'm starting to speak professionally to schools, colleges, on living your someday life today. So prioritizing the things you want someday and bringing those to the forefront in your life and doing those things in the here and now.
Wow. Did you always think that, I guess you started your first business when you were 14 years old, like growing up, but before you were 14, all right, how about like 8-year-old Danny? Did you always think that you were going to be like an entrepreneur? Was that always the card for Danny?
Yeah, so my path to entrepreneurship's a little bit unique, in the sense that my dad early on was constantly giving me these subtle messages. My dad's story, just for context, my dad was a creative guy. He was an industrial designer, so he liked to design things and furniture, chairs, things of that nature. And he started his own design agency after grad school, building his own design agency. It's going well. And his biggest customer told him, eventually they told him, "Hey, we're going to hire for this role in house. We want you to do the role. If you don't choose it, we're going to stop working with you." And that was his biggest customer. And at the time, he was just starting my family. My oldest sister was born at that time. And my dad ultimately decided to close his company, and he went and joined this company. Um, and he ended up working there for 20 plus years. And um, although he never said, I regret this path that I went on, he would always give me these subtle hints. Hey, you can go and work for someone else and help them build their dreams, or you can have others help you build your dreams. And what I kind of understood that to mean was, don't spend so much time chasing other people's dreams that you forget about your own. And that's really what led me at 14 to start my own business, because my dad was really pushing me to pursue my childhood dreams. And at the time, I loved boxing. I still love boxing. And I basically lived in a gym, with the exception of going to school. I was in the gym from the second I got home till the gym would close. And I competed for a little bit in kickboxing growing up, and I thought there was an opportunity to start selling boxing gloves to people in the gym, and that was kind of like how I got my first foot in the door in terms of building a business.
Wait, so you're selling boxing gloves to other boxers, or like people who already have gloves? Like,
Yeah,
break
so
that down.
I work.
And a 14-year-old kid coming up to you like saying, "Hey, I got boxing gloves. You want them?"
So I worked at a gym, like cleaning the gym. Nothing sexy. I wasn't a cool trainer at 14 years old, and I noticed that they didn't have a store and everyone had boxing gloves. And I'm like, hey, every now and then you need to get new gloves. So why don't I bring in some gloves and try to sell it to people in the gym? And I ended up pooling some of the money that I had made from working in the gym. My dad gave me a little bit of money as well at the time. And we brought in a couple of boxes of boxing gloves from a manufacturer overseas. And then on the weekends, my parents would drive me to different gyms across Long Island, and I'd sell the gloves to the gyms. And that's how the business started, and slowly grew and evolved. And all of a sudden we were, this is like at the time kind of when UFC was first taking off. Boxing was not the cool thing that really has evolved into today. But I was selling to a ton of gyms all across Long Island, New York, eventually Vegas, Boston, and a lot of the major cities. And we had good amount of distribution across the U.S.
It's so cool when you feel empowered to chase something that other people probably think is a little crazy. Like what a gift and what a blessing that is to have parents, right? That were like, yeah, we'll figure out how to help you. I'm sure they had to like legally probably sign some things, like 14-year-old doing distribution across the country, right? And I think, my father has his own business as well. And so growing up, seeing how they work and how they think with that entrepreneurial mindset, I think you're exactly right. Painted this picture of follow what your dream is and figure out what brings you fulfillment, because there's not only one way to do life. There are many paths that you can take, so might as well take the path that brings you the most fulfillment. And I think it's really special when you kind of get that ingrained in you from a young age.
100%. It was the coolest thing at 14 years old. I remember this is like an unhealthy habit that today is so frowned upon, but I remember, because Shopify and 3PLs, like those things did not exist when I was building this business. So I had to hire a local dude who built me a website, and you didn't have like it wasn't the same ease that you could throw up a website together today, and bring in inventory and send it to some warehouse in the U.S. that's gonna go and ship your product. I put it in my garage start, and then we evolved into a storage space, and then eventually once we grew enough, we put it in someone else's warehouse. But growing up, I remember when we first started, and I would get orders in the middle of the night. I thought it was the coolest thing, because I was literally making money in my sleep at 14 years old. And I started that unhealthy habit of I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd check my phone and I'd be like, shit, we got a couple orders tonight. This is a great night. So there was a lot of excitement as a 14-year-old building this business.
I can't imagine as a 14-year-old, you're like literally seeing just ding, dollar amount coming in, another sale. Like as a kid, you're probably like, what is happening? First of all, how can people like, why is this happening? And then you're like, wow, I actually have something here. And then you're probably looking at your parents and be like, holy crap, like Danny's got something here. Like they're looking at you like, and they're like, let's make this happen. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was cool. My dad used to have to take the orders that we get. I would box them up in the garage and you have to take them to the post office in the morning because like 3PLs just it wasn't a thing. So it's cool to just like, starting a business has become so much easier today. Obviously you have other challenges, but there were so many things that would have made my life so much easier in the moment. But I guess those were also the exciting things.
So, you started this at 14. You grow up, you go through, you were a camp counselor. I know that you're probably doing that in your high school years, maybe in college as well. Like at some point it shifts. Like the mindset that you have around the business might have shifted. You went to college, right? So you go to Syracuse, and I'm assuming that did the business stop, or did you bring the business to Syracuse?
No, the business grew actually, and Syracuse was super supportive. And at the time, there were all these. There still are, but there were so many business competitions, and I was able to go and compete in all these business competitions.
Amazing.
And over the course of that, I won an extra $50,000 to just go fund inventory, and that was all free money that schools gave me. So if you're in college now, that's something that anyone could take advantage of, and that was something that was awesome. And actually, my junior year, I was in all these competitions, and I was always getting like second, third place. And then my senior year, I started winning them, which was really cool. But my senior year, I was pitching a different business, so it was slightly different in the combat sports space. I helped co-create the world's most protective jockstrap, and that took off even faster than my other business. And that business actually, Joe Rogan got a hold of the cup, and he gave us like a 90-second commercial during a live UFC event, and the website crashed. And that's how the business took off, actually.
Dude, what? That's amazing.
It's so wild, right? Like you go through life thinking and working hard and wanting to be successful and wanting to follow your dreams. I just think it's so wild that at 1 second, 90 seconds, your entire business, mindset, life got flipped upside down. It just goes to show you, right? Like Parker and I always say this when it comes to the podcast, right? Like, Danny, I'll be honest with you. We're not making any money off this stuff yet. Like we're not cashing in a ton of checks, but we keep being patient. We keep being consistent. And we try to put, helping others at the forefront. And we always just say, it'll pay off eventually. You never know who we're going to meet next. You never know what the next opportunity is going to be. And I think by putting that mindset out into the universe, things like that happen to guys like you and hopefully guys like us too. It's pretty wild. Just plant those seeds.
Yeah, but it's also like it's difficult at times. I will say, like Sam and I have been on this journey since we graduated college. Essentially, we had another business before Elevation Nation. We called it Hired You. So we've been doing this thing together for 5 years, and I will say it's really challenging at times. You're like sitting there and you're like, I know why we're doing this. I know the mission behind it. I feel it. I know it. But when's it going to hit? When's it going to really get us to the point where we're like, okay, we're in a groove. And yeah, Sam and I are in a groove right now. We feel like we're in a groove. Like we just launched the new apparel line. Like we got other things we're feeling good about. But oftentimes it's just like, where are we going? And, we still work at our full-time jobs. And it's like, we want to be doing this full-time for sure. And so, Danny, you started a lot of businesses, and you've definitely gone through, I'm sure, that thought many, many times.
A million times. Going through it right now.
A million times. I guess it's the entrepreneurial way of life, right?
I think what it always comes back to is intentionality, right? Like, what's your intention with the show? And obviously, you have hopes, dreams, goals, aspirations, but what's your like baseline intention of what's going to pull you out of bed in the morning to go do the thing you're about to go do. And as long as you're like achieving that baseline intentionality, I think then that's enough reason to like continue to be at it. But it obviously helps when you have an intentionality around the thing you're doing or the business you're building, and also identifying like, do we care if this is a business? Is it okay if it's more a hobby, or is it okay that if this thing takes 20 years and if it just slowly builds little by little by little? So I think the intentionality piece is always really important, and that's something that like I've worked to try to get more clarity on over time, because I've like over the last decade I've been involved in so many things where I used to be, hey, that's cool, let me jump into it, but there wasn't always the intentionality. So now I try to be a lot more hyper intentional around why I'm doing what I'm doing, and what's like the baseline of success for this thing for me that I'm going to be okay with.
Speaking of intentionality, Danny, you're exploring something new. We talked about this for a bit when we first met. There's a new dream for you. It's not building combat sport businesses anymore, is it? We have something,
not anymore now.
Something new on the books, and you just put in some serious time and money to figure that out. Can you share with us a little bit of what, Danny, your new kind of dream is?
Yeah, so going back to like the college business competitions, I realized when I was doing that, I loved the opportunity to be on a stage presenting. And I realized going from like my junior year to senior year, as I mentioned, I was second, third place always. And there were moments where, despite having the success of like still placing and winning some money, I have one story where I had the opportunity to compete in something called the Cupid's Cup, which is Under Armour sponsored business plan competition. I don't know if it's still going on now. And you had to get selected. And then once you were selected, you got to go to Under Armour. Kevin Plank, the founder, spoke to everyone, and you pitched to Kevin Plank, among other executives at Under Armour. And there were 16 companies there, and they were selecting, I think, like six companies that were going to go to the final round. And there were perks, obviously, if you won. And I remember I didn't make it to the next round, and I left there crying on my way to the airport. And I thought, it was devastating. I wanted to win so badly. And the following year, I was pitching a different business, but I said, what can I do differently? And the thing that I did tremendously differently was, instead of just pitching my business, I put on a full-blown show. And that was the game changer. Like, people were captivated in what I was. It wasn't that the business was so impressive. It was that the pitch was a performance. And it was in that moment that I really found like this love for performance. I'll just tell you, because you don't have the context, but I was building this jockstrap business, and I would wear this cup. We built the world's most protective cup, and I would wear it underneath my suit. And then I had all these tools on the stage. I had a sledgehammer, a hammer, a baseball bat, and I would invite people from the audience to come up, and they'd have the opportunity to hit me in the nuts. And like it worked. People loved it, and that was just like one of the things. But I tried to really lean into being a performer. So fast forward, that's kind of where I first recognized though my love for this. And then when I was 25, my mom died, and I realized that I cared less about my business in that moment. And I started to ask myself, knowing, like, I recognized how fragile life is after she died. And I started to ask myself, knowing that tomorrow is not guaranteed, what are the things in my life that I really care to go and do someday? And how do I do those things today? And one of those things was speaking. And that just kept being this recurring thing. I want to go and speak to help inspire and empower other people to realize that their some days doesn't have to be someday far out in the future. It could be today. So I ended up joining this company called Heroic Public Speaking as a student, and it's essentially a master's level training to become a professional paid public speaker. And it's a 6-month intensive program where you learn the ins and outs of the business, The Art of Performance, and I just finished that. And yeah, I'm excited and trying to now get my speaking business off the ground.
What do you think it is about? I love the way you just described, like, you're a performer on the stage. Like, you're putting on this performance when, obviously we're taking a step back before you made that decision to go into the speaking school and whatnot. I would just think back to that story at Under Armour. Like what is it? What's captivating about you not just sitting there and explaining your business? Because I feel 99% of people do that and just go pitch the business. We got a great business model. This is product. This is the value prop. This is what we're different from the competitors. This, that. What is it about getting in front of a group of people and performing that you think is the differentiator?
In terms of, for me personally, like what draws me to it?
For you, yeah.
So I'll just say that I feel and let me know if this answers your question, but I had a podcast before, and I think the thing that's really different in speaking on a stage is that the stakes are higher. You're in real time on the stage having a conversation, and I think the conversation, despite it seeming like it's just one person speaking to a group of people, I think it's really a two-way conversation, and you can feel as the performer, it is like a rush of, it's like you just did the most insane drug when you make people feel and think and act differently as a result of the words, the stories that you're sharing with them. And when you do it well and you see people reacting, you want to make them feel it so much more. When they're laughing, you want to make them laugh harder. When they're crying, you want to make them cry harder. It is the real-time feedback that you're getting, which makes speaking higher stakes and so exciting to me.
You just threw me back to a key memory, honestly, from my camp days. And this ties perfectly into what we're talking about. So, skits, right? Olympics, color war. You have skits that the teams perform in front of every single person who's at the camp. So let's say it's 650 campers, 350 staff members. There's over 1,000 people. And so I was a counselor and just a general counselor. And for some reason I was, hey, Parker, do you want to do the skit, right? You're going to play this role. And I was so nervous. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not an actor. I did not do theater growing up. I am not very funny in front of a lot of people.
Were you still cross-eyed at this time, Parker? Or?
No glasses. And so I played this role, whatever. I was acting as this other counselor, I guess, whatever. And for some reason, like right off the bat, I was like trying to mimic his voice. And right off the bat, it hit. And I'm like, oh my God, people are laughing. And then I just kept going and going, like almost like improv.
Yeah.
And in the skit, and I'll never forget afterwards how, like, to your point, like good that was feeling, because you felt like you were controlling. Like, we're talking about 1,000 people laughing, enjoying. People are coming up to you after. And I'm like, oh my God, like it's so much more than reading a script. It's so much more than just saying something. Like, you have to connect with the audience. And when you connect and you continue to use that to your advantage to keep going, it's like, whoa, that is cool. And to your point, it is addicting in a sense.
Yeah, there's something in it's like you get a huge adrenaline rush when you're up there, and
crazy.
Yeah, and
you black out, Danny.
It's funny.
When I do, I don't remember anything.
Yeah, I think I'm slowly starting to get to a point where like I'm a little bit calmer, but you still get a big adrenaline dump. And I think over time, what I've been told is eventually I'll be able to see what I'm doing as if I was an audience member in real time. But I'm not quite there yet.
So I have to bring up one thing, Danny. We're going to take a quick tangent. We're going deep into Parker and my friendship here in college. And when we became really close friends, we went abroad together. Parker just mentioned that he did skits in camp and that he did this voice. Parker, this is a perfect time to share with Elevation Nation and Danny your alter ego, James Joyce, one of the most incredible voices.
Where did this come from?
You're the one that said you black out. You like making people laugh. So, Danny, I'll give you some context. Again, this is tangent. I'm sorry, but we like to have a little comedy on this show. Parker and I are abroad. We're in Dublin. We walk past one of these James Joyce bars. Parker maybe had a beer or 3, and he busts out this voice of James Joyce that is a running joke in all our friend groups. And yeah, I put him on the spot right now. Parker, I think you're going to have to do the quick James Joyce impression.
You're telling me I got to break it out now?
It's like Patrick Mahomes,
right?
It's perfect. It's
I just won the Super Bowl. Like,
I don't know what it is. My fiance, she's like, where does that voice come from? She's a speech pathologist. She's like, I don't understand how you make
that noise. Like, it's so different than what you're talking.
And it's funny, Danny, like I've been going with this thing now since college. It's been like 8 years now, and it's like people still laugh. That's what.
Yeah,
that's
it's
the
good.
thing. I'll pull it out of
Unexpected.
nowhere.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Paul.
That was funny.
I had to.
I enjoyed that.
Great. But I think
it actually
that's,
hurts. I will say.
I'm sure it is wild, though, right? Danny, one of our goals that Parker and I have for Elevation Nation, I shared with you, is we want to speak. We want to go around and speak. And we had our first, paid speaking gig in Chicago. They flew us out. It was incredible. Awesome time. We got to influence, a couple hundred high school students and help them unlock their mental motto, which I'm excited to hear yours in a bit. And we did some exercises. We had them get a little introspective. We walked them through a concept that we have here at Elevation Nation called mental fortitude. We shared stories of elevators that have joined Elevation Nation. And, you start, right? High school students are a tough audience. We go in, Parker and I like to think we're still young, but they look at us and we're like the old heads that come in.
Yeah, you're old now.
And so,
Dude, I walked in. I was like, these guys looking to me like I am literally like, guys, come on. Like, I'm 27 years old right now. Like, come on. Like, I watch TikTok. I still like do cool things. Like, you guys are not the cool ones. I'm the cool one right here.
How'd it go? How was it?
It was incredible.
It took a while. It took a little bit to warm up, I will say. Like, everyone's kind of like, why are we here type of thing. But then we warmed up.
Mm.
And that's the point that I think, Danny, is like what I love. You come in, there's this group of kids that don't want to be there. They don't want to listen to what you have to say. But you say a couple things at the beginning to build rapport, get vulnerable, and show that you're going to deliver value. And all of a sudden, it goes from like, why are we here to what are these guys going to say? And how are they going to change the way I think? And I remember, those first 5 minutes when Parker and I are giving our intro and what we're going to do and building that rapport, more and more eyes lighting up. That was the feeling that I think all three of us probably live for, which is knowing that we're making an impact to people. And you're right. It is like a drug. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine high school is tough because probably a lot of them are like, what the hell are you doing up here?
Yeah, a lot of them were like, who are you and why are you talking to us? But you figure out how to build that rapport. And I think that's what's really cool about public speaking is you have the ability in that moment to either connect with the audience or totally flop. And I'm sure there are going to be times when we totally flop. That's the only way you learn and get better and grow in this game.
Yeah, they say there's speakers who have flopped and there's speakers who have flopped, but have no awareness that realize that they flopped. There's some saying like that.
Are you serious? They think it's just like they killed it and then everyone's just kind of sitting there.
Well, a lot of people do think. I think probably if you asked most people how like a speech went at the end, if they're doing it intentionally, like I'm going to go out there, a lot of people do wing it. First of all, so most people don't create some speech that they're working off of that's block stage rehearsed, where they go out there intentionally. I'm going to say this, or I'm going to move on the stage when I say this, or do this when I say this line. Most people do just wing it, and if you ask most people, they'll probably say, "Oh, I killed it." But a lot of people who do wing it, they probably aren't actually killing it.
Wow, Sam, do we need to take a step back and watch that video recording right now?
I think we're gonna have to.
I think it's a great point.
It's a very good point.
It's a great point though, Danny, because I feel like first of all, we know I think it's very known that public speaking is a common fear among a lot of people, and then let alone people who actually there's so many times where people are speaking publicly, whether it's not necessarily like on a podcast like this, but more being in the work setting, or you look on TV, people are speaking always publicly, and I always think like, like I was on a thing today. There's 200 people, guys speaking. I'm like, I'm not interested. Like the things you're saying could be interesting. The way you're delivering it is so uninteresting.
Yeah, the delivery
that's so compelling.
Yeah, that's so important. Obviously, the delivery, the performance. Here's a trick, just in general. If you do get very nervous, this is something that's tremendously helped me. To fight the nerves or the fears, one thing to recognize, if you are giving some speech, it really doesn't matter what it is. The speech is never about you. You're the messenger, right? You're there to deliver a message to whoever the audience is, but the speech is not about you. And the second you do that, your speech will automatically become better because you're not focused on how you sound or how you look. Instead, you're just focused on what's the message that I need to deliver to the audience and what do I want them to feel or think as a result of the words that I'm about to share with them.
I think that's an incredible piece of advice and something that Elevation Nation, as young adults in high school, in college, and just joining the real world, probably need to hear, whether you're giving speeches for a club, practicing for job or internship interviews, or like Parker, Elevation Nation has heard this story, Parker's first presentation to a client, right? And prepping for that. Whatever stage of life you're in, I think, Danny, that's incredible advice. And I appreciate you saying that. I want to talk for a second about message and the message that you're sharing. So we've talked a lot about how we all love public speaking, the power that it gives us and the impact that we can have on others. And of course, how you deliver it is extremely important to both of your points. But when you combine delivery with a message that is fruitful, you get something really special. And I know, Danny, the message that you're spreading now with, this speech that you're working on in particular, but what you've done with Bits of Gold and your entire life now culminating into this new message. Can you share a little bit about, living your best life right now and some of the thoughts you have around that?
Yeah, I think so many people, especially that are early on in their career, are so focused on pursuing the things they think they're supposed to do today. So, I think a lot of people, like, right out of school, they're focused on, I'm going to go get the job, and I'm going to go right into the job, and I need to climb this ladder, and that's what everyone does, and I'm not going to think for a second, is this actually the path or the journey that I want to go on, or am I just doing this because my parents told me to do it, because my older brother did this before me, or my cousin did it, or I had a mentor or a friend who said, you should do that, and now all of a sudden I'm here. So I think a lot of people early on lack that intentionality, or like the feeling that, hey, let me just play around and experiment. I think your 20s are the absolute best time to try a bunch of different things. Like, put on your explorer cap and go and try 20 things, and process of elimination, start to eliminate the things you don't like and things you do like, but actually affirm to yourself that, like, the path I'm on is actually for me and I want that, as opposed to that's what my parents or my teachers told me to do. And then I think on the flip, you get people who don't do that journey and they go down this path for the next 10, 20 years and wake up at 30, 35, 40, and they say, I'm not happy and I want to make a change, but I just spent the last decade or 2 decades on this path. That would be crazy to make a change now. And, I want to help people understand that, sure, it might be a little bit crazy, but you can go and make that change. You can you can choose to change the path you're on at 21, at 25, at 30, at 50. Like, there's no rule book that you need to be abiding by or following. You make the rules of your own life, and you get to decide the life you want to live when you wake up in the morning.
So why do so many people fall into that trap? Why do you think?
I think a lot of it comes back to intentionality. I think so many people never sit down and ask themselves, is the day I'm about to go and live actually the day I want to live? And I think ultimately a lot of people just start living it, and they say, "Oh, I'm deep in this. I can't make a change now. That would be crazy." And in some ways, sure, it would be. But I personally think that that's the biggest thing. Like, I know when I was 21, no one sat me down and was like, do you actually want to do this, or who's this for? Is it for you? And why do you want to do this? Like, people just said, at 21, people ask you, what are you going to do after school? That's the only question. No one's asking you, does that thing actually make you happy? Or why are you actually interested in that? Is it because like your buddy Johnny or your older brother told you that's what you should go and do? That's by the way, that's cool and you can go and do that, but that's an absolute crazy reason to choose a path and then continue down that path year after year after year after year. And of course, it does get more complicated because once you're on that path for 10 years, all of a sudden you wake up at 30, you want to start a family, kids, you have a lot more financial responsibility, and then jumping off that train gets a lot harder.
I teed that up, first of all, but on purpose, because I wanted to hear your point, Danny. But Sam and I have been on this journey together. We talked about we've been doing this for 5 years now, but specifically with Elevation Nation, is we felt that way. We felt stuck. We felt like we were not waking up every day, really enjoying it to our fullest. And that's why we started Elevation Nation. That's why we wanted to meet people like you who inspire us, who have gone through similar situations, who have gone through other situations. And we wanted to hear and learn from the world about how they've gone about it and share those conversations with others. And that led us to what Sam mentioned earlier, the framework of mental fortitude. And it's the way that Sam and I have been sharing with Elevation Nation on how we live our life. And we want to spread mental fortitude with the world because we believe that it is a key, a missing piece that can help young adults to find their purpose, to find how they can wake up every day and really enjoy what it is they spend their day as. And so let me break down mental fortitude for you because it's really, really simple. Maybe you've heard the term, maybe you've not. The way we break it down is into 3 parts. It's knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and knowing how to get there. So we call that myself, my vision, and my fuel. And Sam and I believe that if you know those 3 things, who you are, where you're going, and how to get there, you can get over those humps. When times are tough, you have your direction. When you wake up in the morning, you feel a little off, mental fortitude, you have it because you've asked yourself those deep questions, and now you can bring yourself back, and then you can go forward and elevate.
I love that. Yeah, that's
it took
great.
a little while, Danny, to get that. And, I think I shared with you why Elevation Nation started. Parker and I both went to Maryland, became friends, graduated, got jobs in big consulting firms in big cities, but we're kind of miserable. Just figuring out, like, what is next and why am I doing this and what do I actually want in life? And, I don't want to blame it on society or blame it on school, blame it on family, whatever it is. But there is a point that we just, like, aren't taught to pause. It sounds so simple, but you teed it up perfectly. Like, people just go, right? On to the next thing. You have high school, then you got to get into college. You have ACT and SAT, then you prep for that. You got tutors, you write your essays, you apply, you go. Internships turn into jobs. All of a sudden turns into the next rung on the corporate ladder. And it's like, no one ever taught us to, like, chill out. I'm not saying you need to take a break and go on a sabbatical for a year. I'm saying take a weekend night and light a candle, put on some music, whip out a piece of paper, and write down things that bring you joy. Write down things that make you miserable. Write down what your ideal day looks like. Get a little deep with who you are and what you actually want. Not what society's telling you to do, not what the next step is supposed to be. What do you want? And I think to your point of you can change at 18, 23, 50. Yes, you can, 100%. But you won't ever change until you take a step back and figure out who you actually are at your core. And so it's just tough. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy if you really think about it. And obviously, this is the work that you're doing, but it's crazy how many people don't ever take the time to think about the life they're living. And if they give a shit in the morning about that life that they're actually living, or if they want to make a change. That's crazy.
I think that people, so I might go a little against you guys. I think people think about it. I don't think people live it. So they'll think about, oh, I want this change in my life. Oh, I hate my job. Oh, I want to run a marathon. Oh, I want to do this. I want to lose 20 pounds. People think that shit all the time. They don't have the vision clear, and they don't have the fuel, the understanding of what's going to drive them to keep them accountable as they do that every single day. Because elevation doesn't happen in a day, a second, an hour, whatever. It happens over time, and a lot of time. Sam and I, the podcast, 2.5 years, and we're still just like getting started. Who knows where we'll get with this thing?
I think also some people fall victim to saying, yeah, I'm going to do it, but someday I'll do it in 10 years from now. I'll do it in 15 years from now. And, that was kind of like my own narrative that I was telling myself around a lot of things. We didn't really touch like get into it too much, but I built a business the last 8 years that worked, that was a good business. It was an agency-based business helping brands make product overseas. There were plenty of elements that I enjoyed, but ultimately it wasn't the thing that was pulling me out of bed anymore in the morning, and I needed to get out and make a tremendous change. But for years, I sat with this weight on my shoulders saying, I built this thing, it works, it's a good business, but I'm not happy. But it still took me years to actually leave it. And every single day, like really every single day, I'd wake up and I'd say, I'll make the change, but next year. And then all of a sudden, 4 years went by, and I'm still sitting in the business. I only left as of this past December, but it took me time. But the only reason was because I just kept saying, I'll do it next year. Next year will be the right time.
And Danny, you know what we call that? We call that your comfort zone, right? We've talked about it a ton, and we're a little bit of hypocrites sometimes with this, or at least myself. We talk about the comfort zone and how you have to get out of the comfort zone and push yourself to try new things, and I think we do a decent job of it. But sometimes, man, the comfort zone's warm. It's cozy. It doesn't bark back at you. It's not raining. You can pull the blankets over your head, and it's simple and it's easy, right? And even if the comfort zone in your gut is not right, not sustainable, not what you want to do in the future, it's sometimes easier to say, I'm going to do that later. I'm not saying that's the right way to go about it, and I'm not saying that you should do that. If you want to practice true elevation and mental fortitude, you need to try to push yourself outside of the comfort zone. And so that's why I think being introspective more than just once every 5 years. Try to come back and be introspective on what you want. Rethink who you are and what makes you you. Rethink your vision and what you actually want. And that should hopefully drive you to hold yourself accountable and find that fuel to get you out of that comfort zone. But I'm giving myself and Elevation Nation a little bit of slack because I feel like sometimes we preach all this stuff and it's like, I get it. It's hard. Like, it is hard. It's not easy to make a change.
Dude, because the comfort zone is like, it's natural for humans to fall back into it. Like, everyone falls into it in some regard, in some aspect of their life. It's not like, oh, I'm pushing myself all the time, every second, every day. No, of course not. That's human nature. That's how our brains work. The comfort zone's nice because we're not in fear of our lives anymore, But when we get scared and we need to push, you need that extra mental fortitude to get outside the comfort zone because that's where we think the true elevation happens.
Yeah. So, it's funny you bring that up. That is probably, without a doubt, the biggest gift that I was given as a result of losing my parents young, was the understanding of the fragility in life and really understanding that tomorrow there's no guarantee that I'm going to wake up tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. Like, there's absolutely no guarantee of that. And knowing that, that's enough of a bump to be like, I need to prioritize the things that I want to do next year today, because there's just no guarantee that I'm going to have that time.
Dan, do you read Naval Ravikant?
I do not.
All right, well, I'm buying you this book, courtesy of Elevation Nation, for coming on the podcast. I've read it 2 times. I'm finishing up right now. You got to read the book. I don't want to talk much about it, but we're going to talk at the gym at Lifetime when you finish it. and we're going to talk a lot about this book because I'm trying to get Sam to read it, but it's just unbelievable, and it talks all about what you just spoke about. That like,
all right, I'm
living
excited.
in the
I'm
present.
excited to
Oh
dive
my
in.
God. Oh, he's great.
You know,
He's great.
I think just one other thing as I'm sitting here thinking about what you asked, like why people don't do those things sooner or the things they really want. I think another thing that throws a lot of people off, especially early on in their career, is that we have success, the definition of success, so backwards in our society. You know, I think a lot of people, like right when you're done with college, again, no one's asking like, do you care about that, or will that make you happy, or if that makes you happy, you're just trying to like get the most impressive job so you know your parents or whoever, you can feel proud in the moment that, oh, I've done it, I've achieved this thing called success. But like in reality, you know, and that was something that really screwed with me early on in my 20s. But like today, the way I define my own success is just waking up happy and doing work that fulfills me. And I think that that's like, I sat down with a piece of paper one time, you know, and I just wrote like, what is success to me? And what is it not, you know, and define, like getting really intentional on what that is really can have a profound impact in your life.
You sound a lot like Parker. I've been talking about success a ton the past month in just outside of our Elevation Nation stuff, just being friends and talking about life and trying to figure out what I want to do with my life and where I want to go and what success looks like. And Parker's like, keeps asking me, well, what is success? Is that your success? And I keep defending it because I don't think I know. And I think I need to do, Danny, what you did, which is like take some time and write it down, because there's so many ideas of success in my mind from society, from school, from whatever it is. What is Sam Panitch's definition of success? And I think that's what I need to do some work and get to.
Yeah, I think success is deeply personal. I think you define your own success. And I think truly you need to look at success holistically. Like we're taught that success is money in the bank. That's like obviously broadly, but I think that's generally speaking how society defines success. But you need to look holistically at each area of your life. Like what's success in my body? What's success spiritually? What's success financially for me? And you know, there are all those key areas in your life, and that's how I define it. I look at each little bucket, and that's what I'm striving for, not some generic bullshit term that is how society views it.
I've done a lot of introspection. Sam knows about this over the past year or so, and to be honest, I've come to the point where it's like, I'm awake, I'm here. That sounds like success to me. Everything else is house money. And that is really freeing to me in a sense that I'm here. And if I make a mistake, all right, I'm still here. If I do something successful, it's house money. All right, great. Let's put more chips in the table. Like that I've really worked hard at that over the last year. It's like waking up, wow, I'm here. I'm looking around. Walking, like I was in the park, Madison Square Park today. I'm sitting down looking at people moving, smiling, enjoying. Like that is success, to be able to do that. And we take that for granted every single day. To your point, Danny, earlier that you made.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a wild thing, success. All right, Danny, I want to make sure we have time to get to. We have a couple other segments, and I want to respect your time and your life.
We could keep going, but I know we got to respect
we're gonna
time.
have
We have
to
to
do
be
this again.
respectful. I get it. Very
to
respectful.
do this in New York and hang out and chill in person, maybe at the gym, in the sauna.
Sauna Sundays.
Talk for 2 hours.
That's what we'll just call it. Sauna Sundays.
Sauna Sundays. The boys will meet up.
Successful sauna Sundays.
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah,
it.
we're here. We're in the sauna. We're a success.
Hey, we're here. We're breathing in the sauna. All right, Danny, I got a new section for you. We call it our rapid fire. We have a couple questions. First thing that comes to mind. We didn't prep you on these. We like to have a little fun. All right. First thing, we talked about public speaking. All of our loves for public speaking. Where is a dream place or a specific event that you really want to speak at next?
Dream space. I would say, honestly, anywhere will be the dream. I'm giving a TEDx talk in a couple of months, but I think just the opportunity to get up there any time is like that to me is living the dream. That's all I want. That's what I want to be doing full time, all day, every day.
Well, listen, if that's the case, Parker and I, when we start throwing some more Elevation Nation events and workshops and networking events and weekends and summits, I mean, you kind of just said
Have
that
at
you
it.
speak with us, so we're gonna get
Let me know. Let me know.
All right, this one is not a rapid fire, but it's a question I really wanted to ask as the conversation went on. So I'm just going to throw it into the rapid fire section. Sorry, because it's not going to be a rapid fire answer. You said that you quit the company that you were building for 8 months or 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
8 years.
We call this the oh shit moment. What was the oh shit moment where you really were like, I am making this change, and in December you stopped doing it and you moved on to your next thing?
Yeah. So I realized I wanted to leave my business a couple of years ago. And every year I'd say, next year I'll do it. Next year I'll do it. And I kind of drew a line in the sand saying, I need to leave the business at the end of, by the end of this year. By the end of last year, I was like, I need to leave the business. And I ended up saying, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I got a big PO, like a big purchase order from a customer. And I said, this is a sign telling me I should just stay put. Like, things are good. I'm comfortable. So I stayed. And the following year, the exact same thing happened, like different customer. And I said, I can't. What am I going to do this for the next 20, 30, 40 years? And every year say next year I'm going to do it. So it was actually, having a taste of the same thing happening over and over again. I said, like, this is becoming insane. I need to listen to my gut, which is telling me I need to make a change. And I cannot stay here just because I'm comfortable and content. Because I could do this for the next 20 years and say the exact same story and wake up at 50 completely miserable because I just chose the comfortable path for the last 30 years of my life. So it was really, seeing the same thing happen over and over again, year after year. Eventually, I just said, enough.
So when were you like, break down the moment for us. Like, what was it? Were you sitting on your couch?
Parker wants a moment where you literally just yelled shit.
You're like,
that's what he's looking for right now.
Shit, I'm done with this.
Yeah. I think like rarely probably with big, I don't know, for me, I'll only speak from my own experience. That wasn't how it was for me. The catalyst was really like my mom dying made me look so introspectively. But in terms of actually making the change, there was not. It was just like the same thing, the same story, over and over and over again. And I said, like, enough. There wasn't. There. Unfortunately, for the sake of this podcast, there was not a true oh shit moment. Where, and I think this is something that might resonate with some people who tune in. But one thing that sometimes when you close a chapter, you think like, I guess for me it was really a mixed bag in terms of emotions. On one hand, tremendous excitement of what's ahead. On the other hand, sad, like, I just spent 8 years, bittersweet. I spent 8 years of my life dedicated to building this thing that I made that worked, where we had employees. I have a team. I have people overseas that I employed. There were elements that I loved, and it was sad to truly bittersweet. And I think sometimes, you need to, not all chapters that you close, it's not always, like even though I wanted to do it, there's a lot of emotion that goes into it.
That was a great rapid fire answer. I really have to say that was spectacular.
That's good. All right, Danny, last rapid fire for you. Parker already mentioned a book that we're going to send your way. We love spreading knowledge at Elevation Nation, and Parker and I are pretty big bookworms, even though I read on the Kindle and he reads in real books. It's a big controversy in this podcast, but we won't get into that. So we want to ask you, is there a favorite book that you want to recommend to Elevation Nation?
Favorite book? I read so many books in the last year, so I got to be very intentional with my decision making here. I would say Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port. That's who I just got training from for professional speaker training from the last 6 months. I'd say that was an empowering book, specifically as it relates to building a business where you can book yourself solid. It's a very tactical book, but it definitely will help anyone who's trying to go out on their own and build a speaking business, an agency-based business where they want to have where they want to be booked with customers and clients and things like that.
Add it to the list. I love it. Thank you, sir. All right, Danny. This brings us to our final segment, something we really proud of. We've now helped hundreds of people across the country come up with this concept that we call your mental motto, right? Life is crazy. Life is difficult, but you always need something to come back to, a phrase that grounds you, a phrase that brings you back to mental fortitude, that shows you who you are, what you want, and what fuels you. So, Danny Goldberg, I ask you, what is your mental motto?
Yeah, I touched on it already, but tomorrow is not guaranteed. And that is something that I hold dear to my heart. I wake up with and I live with every single day. I really feel when I wake up in the morning, if I have my health, if I have a comfortable place to sleep, enough money to put food on the table, I've already won the day. I'm blessed in this moment. And that's all I need. So tomorrow is not guaranteed is the thing that I hold near and dear to my heart and that I live by.
It's beautiful. Parker's mic unplugged because he's so
It
shocked.
is not unplugged. I was speechless. I was talking to the mic, but nothing was coming out. Maybe the James Joyce voice was trying to come out, and I couldn't, really get it go. But I love that. What a great motto. We haven't gotten that one, even though I feel like I've heard that before. We have not got that one yet on the podcast.
It's the coolest part. Everybody's got their own unique mental motto, and I think your story, Danny. It's apparent why that mental motto is so true to you. And I know Parker mentioned it about playing with house money, but I think if we all can be a little bit more grateful for the things that we have every single day, I think we'll be happier, more fulfilled, and probably more hungry to go after new things that push us outside of our comfort zone. So I appreciate you sharing your mental motto. Like Parker said, I think we could do this for like another 4 hours. So I'm going to hold us to it, whether it's hanging out in the sauna of Lifetime Fitness, headed to a bar in New York or DC, or if we go on to do virtual calls and hang out. It's been such a pleasure welcoming you to Elevation Nation and getting to know you. And now I get to call you a friend, and can't thank you enough for giving us the time.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, Elevation Nation. Until next week. Peace.